Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight, safety on public areas and roads is front and center again after the gruesome crashes at SETEX in Naiya. More than a thorough probe, the incidents call for a closer look at safety protocols that have fallen through the cracks.
Now, speaking of investigations, Malacanang and some lawmakers are calling for a swift one on Prime Water as complaints persist over the service of the Villar-owned water utility company.
And tomorrow, May 7, the process to elect a new pope will begin. We are closely watching the conclave that will set the course for the Catholic Church and its over 1.4 billion members worldwide.
Mababaw ang bollard pero malalim ang issue ng korupsyon.
Two fatal accidents that happened just days apart are prompting calls for investigation on the safety of public spaces. For the Labor Day crash at SETEX that killed 10 people and injured over 30 others, the government has ordered stricter transport protocols to ensure road safety. House Assistant Majority Leader Zia Alonto Adyong sees the need for comprehensive traffic regulation and policies to lessen accidents.
Adyong also wants to look into why the bollards or metal barriers that should have protected people from vehicles failed. He is referring, of course, to the incident of an SUV crashing through the Naiya Terminal 1's passenger entrance that killed 2 people, including a 4-year-old girl. House Assistant Minority Leader Pauline Verzosa also wants a swift inquiry into the matter.
Dapat din tingnan natin yung binibigay natin ng mga budget sa Naiya kung bakit umigay yung mga bollards. Supposedly itong bollards na to dapat iprotektahan nila yung mga pasahero eh. 'Di ba? Bakit bumigay? Substandard ba ito?
Mababaw ang bollard pero malalim ang issue ng korupsyon.
For his part, President Bongbong Marcos has already directed the Department of Transportation to investigate why the bollards failed. The chief executive specifically wants to know why the bollards procurement and installation during the term of former Transportation Secretary Art Tugade.
Tandaan po natin ang inaalagaan po dito yung safety po ng commuters, ng mga passengers, ng mga tao na gumagamit ng kalsada, including na rin po yung mga drivers. So pag-aaralan pa rin po ito at wag naman po agad nating husgahan na ito ay isang money-making device or strategy.
President Marcos likewise ordered a crackdown on unsafe and exploitative practices in the transport sector. He has instructed transportation agencies to conduct a nationwide audit of bus operators and to sanction those who fail to comply with safety and maintenance standards.
With road safety and the condition of public transportation again in the spotlight, authorities have again reacted with, yes, surprise inspections. And lo and behold, scores of public buses failed to meet safety standards, from defective parts to severely worn tires, which are dangerous especially on slippery roads.
Pag pinag-usapan gulong na kalbo, na truck o bus, delikado yan. Again, ang problema yung fatalities. The number might be small, but the number of fatalities will be big. So yun po ang aming naabangan dyan. Gusto kong maiwasan.
The Land Transportation Office also met with officials of all expressways to strictly enforce regulations. Starting next week, additional enforcers will be stationed on roads to check vehicles, speeds, and do random checks on the condition of drivers entering expressways.
Itong expressway kasi is a controlled area. No? Ibig sabihin, may mga law enforcers inside this controlled area. May cameras dyan in that controlled area. So there can be no reason why we cannot achieve zero accident inside the expressways.
In a study by the Philippine Statistics Authority in 2022, 12,000 Filipinos died in road accidents. What is more alarming is this figure has increased every year since. What are the causes of these accidents, and can these be lessened if not prevented? Joining us to discuss this is Attorney Lester Cavestani from the Vehicle Inspection Center Operators Association of the Philippines. Good evening and welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Ma'am Ces, Ms. Shawn, and Ms. Pauline. And it's an honor to join you here at the big news of One News, big story of One News.
Well, what would you consider the most common causes of road accidents based on your study?
Right. So, Ma'am Ces, the government, our Department of Transportation, they've identified 3 causes of road accidents. One is safer roads, the other one is safer vehicles, and the third one is safer road users. So included in the safer road users are our drivers. So whenever we talk about the driver education, the driver errors, that we're looking at the safer road users. Our organization, the Vehicle Inspection Center Operators Association of the Philippines, we're looking into safer vehicles. And that's why Land Transportation Chief ASEC Vigor Mendoza has been doing roadworthy inspections of our vehicles. Ma'am says we're looking at the tires. These tires actually have an expiration date. We're only allowed to use them for 5 years. But we know for a fact that what happens that, because of practicality or cutting down on expenses, the tires are being retreaded or reused. And sometimes you can have secondhand tires coming in. That was the focus of the video you showed earlier, as pointed out by ASEC Vigor Mendoza.
But of course, what we saw is, surprise inspections following these accidents. How can we make them more regular, and how can we get, bus company, public transport, and also private vehicles to comply?
Thank you, Ma'am Ces. Ang ganda po niyan. Whenever there's a crisis, we're talking about the post-crash response. It's really nice. We're really happy that we have leaders like Secretary Vince Dizon, who is reacting, and he's always on the ground. Even in the accident in NAIA, he was even there on a Sunday morning. And this is the kind of reaction we want from our leaders. The next level, of course, is being proactive, and that's where VCOAP comes in. VCOAP was a creation of a road safety program of the Department of Transportation, wherein they open it up to a private sector to put up vehicle inspection facilities. And in these vehicle inspection facilities, again, we're looking at what are the proactive measures we can do. It's by introducing technology, the likes of which is, for example, the brake tester. There is such a thing as a brake tester wherein the vehicle goes onto it. And what this equipment measures, Ma'am says, is the braking force of the vehicle sufficient for the size and the weight of the vehicle? So these technologies, these standards are all imported from Europe, and these standards are imposed on us by European standards to ensure that even though we are a third world country and there are a lot of second-hand vehicles that come into the Philippines, the roadworthiness, are they still properly maintained? Are they safe to be operated vehicles?
But
we don't compromise on those standards.
Right, but it's not mandatory. Is this voluntary, not mandatory?
Yeah. So, Ma'am says right now, because this was the vehicle inspection, was put on top of the vehicle emission testing program of the government. So this was during the pandemic, and the government didn't want to burden the Filipino by imposing, vehicle inspection should be mandatory. So what they did, because there were still few and far between vehicle inspection centers back then, they gave it as an option to the public. You can either go to the vehicle emission testing center, and then after that, you're gonna be having a vehicle inspection in the LTO. Or nowadays, because there's already 130 vehicle inspection centers nationwide, you can go to the vehicle inspection center, have your emission testing done, and at the same time, in that same facility, you can have your vehicle roadworthiness checked. And when we say vehicle roadworthiness, we're looking at all the factors. Are your headlights, even though they're still working, how is the luminous intensity? So we have a technology, we have an equipment which measures the luminous intensity. These are standards, these are international standards that are already in place. We're just checking that whether or not your headlights are still within the standards set by our road safety managers.
So it
And
comes
road
when you register your vehicle for
Yes,
right?
yes,
But yun na
yes,
nga
ma'am.
di ba parang every 5 years na ba? Ano na ba ngayon? So
Right now, if your vehicle is new, ma'am, you don't have to get it renewed for another 3 years. But after the 3 years, you are required to do it every year. And this was exactly the point of Secretary Vince Dizon, that due to the lack of manpower and resources of the government in ensuring the roadworthiness of vehicles, the word he used is actually outsourcing. So he would like to open it up to private sector partners like us, like VCOAP. And there's already discussion that our vehicle inspection facilities may be mandated or may be given authority to inspect our public buses and even the trucks. Because right now, these trucks and buses, there's a scenario, as pointed out by Secretary Vince, that none of them are being inspected properly.
Yeah.
And there has been that problem of non-appearance testing, wherein you just pass your papers, you give your ORCR to your fixer, and then he will make sure that at the end of the day, you receive your registration and you didn't even have to bring your vehicle to the inspection facility. But in our facility, we're proud of the fact that we have CCTVs, and these are being monitored by the Department of Transportation to ensure that the vehicles are really there, being tested and inspected.
Attorney Cavastani, I understand your mandate extends to private vehicles, but in the news lately with that bus crash and some other accidents, yung roadworthiness ng public vehicles also comes into question. Are your members lobbying also na parang isama dapat yung public vehicles din, and where are we on that?
Thank you, Ms. Shawn. Our role as the VCOAP, since we're the private sector, we're really just waiting for the authorization that will be coming from our government. Again, we're looking at the gaps, and we're very happy that we have a hands-on secretary at the moment who is looking at those gaps. He's wanting to bring back the drug testing. There were about 600 drivers who tested positive during the Holy Week. And these are the bus drivers who are transporting all these passengers who wanted to go back home during that long weekend. And these are the things that they want to fill in terms of the gaps. These are the safety gaps. And, we're just waiting on the lead and the instructions of the government, and we'll take it from there.
So just to clarify, there's no specific timeline on this yet? Kasi from 2021, I understand, baka 2025 daw, sometime in the second half of the year.
Right. There was, in fact, a proposal back in 2020, this was done also in 2021, for there to be vehicle inspection center facilities for trucks and buses. However, that was during the pandemic time, and then, of course, there was a transition in government. So that got shelved for some time. But now that in the news, and even now, right now, we're very thankful that in the big story, you're featuring road safety, which at the end of the day, ultimately saves lives. Road safety hasn't been at the forefront of discussion in the past years. And, and it was very nice that Ma'am Ces opened up with the statistics that we have more than 12,000 deaths every year. And the other statistic that I would like to share with you is that according to the World Health Organization, in the ages 5 to 29, the number one killer for this age group, we're not talking about health problems, we're not talking about other reasons, we're only talking about road crashes. And these are the prime years, they're so young, 5 to 29. And the number one killer for that age group is really road crash. So some people have even called this an epidemic in terms of the number of people that are killed because of road crashes.
I mean, Attorney, it's great that we are promoting the inspection of the roadworthiness of vehicles, but I wanted to zero in on the drivers themselves because these last two incidents, these gruesome accidents, were most likely caused by human error. So what can be done to make sure that drivers are fit to drive? I mean, you have licenses being valid for 10 years with the LTO.
Exactly.
What should be done? Dapat po ba every year na rin tayo nag-check kung fit mag-drive ang mga tao?
Thank you, Ms. Pauline, for that question. Again, that goes into the pillar of safer road users. So, coming from VCOAP, we're safer vehicles. Now your question is really about the safer road users. And what the LTO has done, and some of the younger ones may have been experiencing this now, is the fact that they have to go to a driving school, and the driving school has to submit this certificate to the LTO before they are given their driver's license. There was a time, and I'm speaking for my generation, that you could just ask your uncle to teach you how to drive, shift the gear into first gear, and then you could already get your license. And there were so many fixers as well in LTO. We can recall that this is really rampant back in those days, and even a blind person was able to get a driver's license. But nowadays, because of the new programs being implemented by DOTr and LTO, such that you cannot get your driver's license without a proper driving school certifying you as qualified to be operating that four-wheeled vehicle. Again, this avoids a scenario where you know how to drive a motorcycle, you feel like you also know how to drive a four-wheeler, but those are two different vehicles. And again, these changes are coming from our government, and we welcome them. Some of them are reactive, but with the kind of leadership that we have, we feel that we are also moving into the proactive phase of safer road management.
I remember one issue, Attorney Cavestani, that came up during the Senate hearings. You're right, this was the previous Senate during the pandemic under Senator Grace Poe. Pinag-uusapan kasi na baka ma-open ito into corruption. And you mentioned it yourself,
Actually.
right? Minsan sinasabi nila money-making scheme ito. What safeguards are available from yung dating emission center to now this PMVIC? Ano ba yung pagkakaiba and how is it safer from that kind of corruption?
Ms. Shawn, thank you for that. Again, if we're comparing the two facilities, one is just really for emission testing. This was under the Clean Air Act, where all vehicles, whenever we go for registration, there has to be an emission test done. And then what DOTr did back in 2019, they said, let's not stop just at Clean Air Act. Let's go further. Let's go for roadworthiness. Again, these are two different setups. In our new setup with the vehicle inspection, we are trying to avoid the non-appearance testing, which is part of the corruption, where you don't even have to bring your vehicle, you get your vehicle renewed. And in all our facilities, we are required by DOTr to have not really 24/7 CCTV, but during your operating hours, you are required to have CCTV. And these videos are directly fed into the command center of DOTr, where they make sure that you submit your facility has 200 vehicles that were tested during that day, and they have the capability to actually check the CCTV if in fact there were 200 vehicles that went into your facility. Also, it was very nice for Ms. Shawn to point out the corruption. Again, this has always been a problem for LTO, wherein there are so many fixers. The vehicle owner would go there, and then the fixer would just say, sige boss, 2,000, eto na, kompleto na, hindi mo na kailangan, ako na bahala, dadaling ko na sa iyo yung resibo, yung ORCR mo. And this has been being handled and managed by ASIC Vigor year in, year out, to make sure he is actually promoting the use of vehicle inspection center facilities. Because he said at the end of the day, there's no other option for us to ensure roadworthiness of vehicles except to really propagate and to promote vehicle inspection centers.
Just one last question for me, Attorney. I mean, even with all these safeguards, sometimes accidents just still do happen. And just from that incident in NAIA with the bollard, I mean, what did that expose in terms of the government's installation procurement?
Well, we have seen bollards which actually have the capability to stop the vehicle, especially if it's a head-on collision. And this is something that we expected to happen in NAIA. And unfortunately, that was not the scenario that came into play, and there were lives lost, and we condole with the family. We really don't want to get into how these bollards were procured or the depth that they should have been buried on the ground. But at the end of the day, we look forward to a leadership that is hands-on. Imagine on a Sunday morning, you see your Secretary of Transportation being at the site of where the crash happened and being interviewed by reporters as to what will be addressed. And we have also seen the Secretary himself visit the wake of all the 10 the casualties of the SCTEX crash. We haven't heard that kind of news from our leadership in a long while. Imagine, he even went to Antipolo and all these wake of the 10 people who lost their lives. And even with the NAIA, I even heard that there was a problem even on the question of what was going to be used in terms of the wake and the funds necessary. Right away, the leadership said the families didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was going to be taken care of. And we hope that
we thank
Sorry,
you.
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've run out of time, Attorney. Thank you so much, Attorney Lester Cavestani from the Vehicle Inspection Center Operators Association of the Philippines.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Malacanang wants to speed up the investigation into Prime Water, the company owned by its former staunch allies, the Villars. The details of that when the big story returns. Stay with us.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. Malacanang is fast-tracking its investigation into the Villar Group's prime water infrastructure projects. While there is still no definite timeline, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the process should be conducted soon, especially since it involves concerns that may disrupt the public's daily life. She also disclosed that it is unclear whether President Bongbong Marcos and senatorial candidate Camille Villar have spoken about the issue. It's worth noting that Marcos Jr. did not mention Villar's name during the administration slate's proclamation rally in Cebu. Just last week, Alianza's candidates and even its campaign manager clarified Camille is still part of the ticket.
Sa ngayon po, nag-iimbestiga na po, pero dapat po agaran po ito. Hindi po pinagtatagal ang anumang maaaring danasing kahirapan ng taong bayan. So makakaasa po kayo na mabilisang pag-action po dito ng Pangulo. Sa ngayon po, hindi po natin alam kung nagkakausap sila. So nung sa Cebu, kung di siya naka-attend, so most probably at that time hindi sila nagkausap.
For Senator Rita, scrutiny should not only be on prime water. She called on the Senate to investigate all water concessionaires, citing their joint venture agreements that are disadvantageous to other water districts.
Reklamo ng mga kababayan natin, sinisingil pa rin daw sila kahit halos walang tubig ang dumadaloy sa kanilang gripo. Panahon ng singilin naman natin ang mga water concessionaires at iba pang ahensyang dapat nagbibigay ng walang patid na serbisyo.
Meantime, the territorial dispute between Makati and Taguig rages on. The Regional Court of Taguig issued a TRO or temporary restraining order against Makati local government, preventing the latter from Taguig personnel taking over government-owned facilities in the MBOs. In response, Makati City Administrator released a statement criticizing Taguig's leadership, claiming that they are neglecting the welfare of MBO residents. It claimed that the Taguig RTC is allowing the possession of Makati-owned health centers in MBO barangays. Further, they said that Taguig has not improved on its services in the last 2 years, particularly health initiatives for Makatizens. Makati maintains the Supreme Court ruling is over jurisdiction, not the government structures that they built.
COMELEC has started delivering the final batches of official ballots for the 2025 midterm elections across Metro Manila. 7.5 million ballots were transported to local treasurers' offices with police escorts for security. Electoral board members are scheduled to claim the ballots by Sunday or early Monday election day. COMELEC assures that preparations are on track with only monitoring and reporting left and securing of election materials. The poll body also has some last-minute reminders for voters. Prepare a candidate's list, know your precincts, use only the special pens provided at voting sites, and to avoid bringing campaign apparel or freebies. Malacanang has also declared May 12 a special non-working holiday to encourage voter participation.
May serial number kasi ang lahat ng seal na nilalagay natin and therefore properly accounted ang lahat ng yan. Yung mga seal natin, yung plastic seals na yan, ever since, basta yan ay naputol na, ibig sabihin yan, compromised na.
Time to pause for another quick break, but when we return, another Filipino cardinal is emerging as a dark horse in the papal race. Find out the other frontrunners to succeed the late Pope Francis when the big story returns. Keep it here.
The big story is back with news from the Vatican. The conclave begins tomorrow, May 7th, and Catholic devotees still have their preference for the new Pope. One PH anchor Cheryl Cosim with a report.
All 133 cardinals are now in the Vatican for the conclave on Wednesday, May 7th. This centuries-old process will determine the next leader of over 4 billion Catholics. Most of the cardinal electors are Europeans. But notice how they are now significantly less in number compared to the last vote held in 2013 for the late Pope Francis. Asian cardinals saw a huge uptick from 9% in 2013 to 17% this year. Mountain Butora has seen it all. He founded the Catholic Traveler, which designs and leads small group Catholic pilgrimages throughout Europe and the Holy Land. Based on his observations, there's a big chance the next pope could come from Africa or Asia, with Filipino Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle at the forefront.
In our country,
yes.
The most popular is Cardinal Tagle.
Right.
Do you think he has a strong chance?
For sure, like if the conclave was a few years ago.
Not
I think
because I'm a Filipino.
No,
okay?
of course not. Of course not. I think several years ago he was definitely the front runner. I've heard some really good things about him the last few days. Like some of my friends who work for cardinals, they said, "Oh, he's pretty strong." So it could be.
Mountain also thinks Italian cardinals Matteo Zuppi and Pietro Parolin are strong contenders. Cardinal Parolin is the Vatican Secretary of State and currently the most senior among cardinals under the age of 80. Cardinal Zuppi, on the other hand, is known as a close associate and supporter of many of Pope Francis's initiatives, including the Vatican-China Agreement. This gave China more control over underground churches and the Vatican more hold over bishop appointments. But overall, Mountain thinks the odds are more in favor of Zuppi.
He is somebody that both sides like a lot. He's done the traditional Latin Mass. He was named Cardinal by Pope Francis.
Meantime, an Irish missionary thinks Pablo Virgilio Cardinal David can be considered a dark horse. In a press briefing in Rome, Father Shai Cullen noted David's defense of human rights victims during the Duterte war on drugs and his push to bring to civil courts cases of abuse against members of the clergy.
And we must say that our hopes for the future Pope would be, of course, that he would be even stronger than Pope Francis in demanding accountability by the bishops to stop the cover-up and actually to cleanse their diocese. They call these pedophiles their sons, and they protect them, and they help them, and they refuse to realize that these are heinous crimes against children.
Ultimately, though, it's divine intervention, the will of the Holy Spirit, that will determine who will be hailed as the next Pope. Reporting from the Vatican, I'm Cheryl Cosim. We are One News.
And now let's see how preparations are going at the Vatican right this very minute. And joining us live from there is News 5 correspondent Mon Gualvez. Hi Mon, what's the update on the ground, especially now that only a day is left before the conclave begins tomorrow?
Yes, Pauline, the gathering of the congregation rather of the cardinals has ended this morning. This is the 12th gathering or congregation of the cardinals in which kanina nakita natin naglalabasan yung mga cardinals right after the said congregation at mailap pa rin halos lahat ng mga cardinals pero talaga masigasig ang mga media or press na makakuha ng update or development from them. At kanina, isa sa mga cardinal at isa sa mga cardinal electors, specifically si John Paul Cardinal Vesco of Algeria, gave his time at nagbigay ng statement. For him, sabi niya, although this is a personal note, sinasabi niya na he is looking for more progressive type of pope. At the same time, he even mentioned that there's no division among the cardinals na maaari na daw mamili ng susunod na magiging Santo Papa. At ayaw din niyang pangunahan yung mga nagiging papabili natin dito sa mga napag-uusapan na maaaring susunod na Santo Papa. At panghuli, binanggit lamang niya na maaari raw na maging mabilis nga itong magiging conclave this time, but he didn't mention why. So talagang mas nakatutok lamang sila sa mga ginagawa ng mga gatherings or congregation. Ito kasing congregation na ito of cardinals, this is actually open to all the cardinals kahit yung mga hindi na makakasama sa conclave, because this is the perfect time for them to at least give their speeches towards certain issues na kinakaharap ng Catholic Church at kung paano nila ito maaaring masolusyonan. Kasi after this congregation, wala na. Kapag pumasok na sa Sistine Chapel, all the cardinal electors, hindi na sila pwede magbigay ng speech dahil dito nga talagang full of prayers at saka magkakaroon na nga diretso yan ng voting afterwards, and then few hours after, saka naman lalabas na yung usok mula sa chimney dito nga sa Sistine Chapel. So other preparations, talagang pati yung mga staff and even yung mga personnel at yung mga nagluluto doon sa Sistine Chapel and Casa Santa Marta, talagang kasama na rin sila nanumpa ng oath of secrecy para nga masigurado na walang mangyayaring paglabas ng mga information mula sa Sistine Chapel or sa Santa Marta residence oras sa magsimula na yung conclave bukas.
Mon, kamusta naman? Marami na bang devotees na dumagsa? Wala akong nakikita sa likod mo ngayon. Is that because of security preps? But are there a lot of Catholics na dumagsa na dyan sa Rome just to witness this conclave?
Okay, I don't think he can hear us.
Hi, Mon, can you hear us?
Can you hear us now? Okay. Naapektuhan na rin yata tayo ng pag-block ng cellphone.
Baka may signal jammers, no?
Apparently
there you go, Ces. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. Okay. Well, Shawn has a question, but correct, no? There will no longer be any cell phone, mobile phone access for the cardinals beginning tomorrow. Nawala na rin
after the Mass at the St. Peter's Basilica in the morning, di na sila pwede magpasok ng cellphone or any gadgets dyan sa Sistine Chapel. So, oras na makapasok na sa Sistine Chapel, lahat ng mga cardinal electors talagang bawal na sila magpasok ng anumang mga gadgets at all dyan sa Sistine Chapel. At pag sinabi na yung extra omnes, ibig sabihin, isasara na yung Sistine Chapel at hindi na pwedeng manatili doon yung mga hindi na kasama sa mga cardinal electors para hindi na makagulo pa sa mangyayaring conclave.
Okay, Mon, I hope I'll repeat my question kanina. I was just wondering kung marami nang dumagsang mga Katoliko, mga devotees dyan to witness this conclave, at kung puno na ba yung mga hotel, yung buong Roma, and how are the security preps and how is security going to be there dyan sa may square, St. Peter's Square?
Yes, una sa lahat, no, dumadami na yung mga tao dito sa St. Peter's Square. Talagang, we just don't know, sinasabi kasi nila, karamihan sa mga nagpunta dito, talaga may scheduled pilgrimage na dito sa Rome at saka sa Vatican dahil nga Jubilee year din this time. Pero may iba na talagang sinadya itong lugar, especially coming from other parts of Europe, para nga ma-witness itong mangyayaring conclave or para malaman kung sino yung susunod na Santo Papa. In terms of the hotels, if these are fully booked, yes. Most of the hotels here, pati na rin yung mga apartments are all fully booked. Talagang marami ng mga naka-check-in. Most probably because ito rin yung mga kasama nga sa mga nag-pilgrimage at mukhang mag-stay sila for a while dito sa lugar. In terms of security naman, Sean, talagang dumami rin, no? Kasabay ng pagdami ng mga tao dito sa St. Peter's Square, dumadami din yung mga police presence dito sa area. At the same time, talagang nakahanda na rin yung mangyayaring signal jamming. It is said, sinasabi na doon sa paligid ng Sistine Chapel, sa may Vatican Museum, plus doon sa may Casa Santa Marta, dito magkakaroon ng signal jamming. So, we just don't know kung dito sa St. Peter's Square, maapektuhan din ng signal jamming sa mga darating na araw or simula bukas. Sean.
Well, I'm surely, Mon, the whole world will be watching this conclave, ano? But, Mon, can you walk us through what will happen tomorrow? You did mention it will begin with a mass. Pero anong oras ba mismo magsasara yung mga pinto o yung mga pintuan ng St. Peter's Basilica o ng Sistine Chapel?
Yes, tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning here in the Vatican, magkakaroon nga ng Mass sa St. Peter's Basilica. This will be attended by all the cardinal electors and this is open for public. No, so magkakaroon din dito ng live streaming at dito sa St. Peter's Square may mga nakaset up ng mga wide screens, no, para nga mas makita din yung nangyayari sa loob ng mismong basilica. At the same time, wala kasing specific time yung hapon na lilipat na sila sa Sistine Chapel, no? So paglipat nila sa Sistine Chapel, doon na rin mag-e-end yung live streaming ng Vatican sa nangyayaring pagsisimula ng conclave dahil oras na pumasok sila bandang hapon dito sa Sistine Chapel, yun na yung unang beses na boboto ang cardinal electors. And then yung sinasabi nilang anticipation of time na maaaring lumabas yung unang usok is between 7 to 8 p.m. dito sa Vatican and that is early in the morning in the Philippines. Pauline.
And Mon, meron na ring schedule na lumabas, no? So bale tomorrow, day 1, one round of voting. But for the succeeding days, totoo ba na hanggang 4 rounds of voting ang magaganap? In a day. Yeah. Hanggang magkaroon ng bagong Santo Papa.
Tama. Yung lumabas na binabanggit mo, Sean, lumabas yung oras nga ng schedule ng possible smoke watching. Yun nga yung parang anticipation na binabanggit, no? So 2 in the morning at saka 2 in the afternoon dito sa St. Peter's Square na nag-aabang dyan sa chimney dito sa may Sistine Chapel. So there will be 5 rounds of voting kaagad in a matter of 2 days, no? Posibleng tatagal yan hanggang 4 days. At pag 4 days, wala pa rin daw na Santo Papang nahalal or napipili, magpapahinga sandali para mag-gather ulit ang mga cardinals for a prayer and then ganun ulit. 2 or 4 times a day pa rin ang mangyayaring voting among themselves.
Sana mo matuloy yung sinasabi ng kardinal na nakausap mo na mabilis lang, di ba? Parang yan ang kanyang prediction. Dahil baka mag-overlap sa ibang botohang mangyayari dito sa Pilipinas.
Oo, sabi naman niya, kasi ang tanong natin talaga, will there be a possible pope by the end of the week? Ang sinasabi niya, there is a possibility. Again, this is not a direct answer na talagang sagot ng lahat ng kardinal, pero ito ay maaari daw mangyari. Kung titingnan natin, Pope Benedict XVI, si Pope Francis, talagang maiikli lang din yung kanilang mga conclave na nangyari nung sila ay mahalal bilang Santo Papa. And this time, most people, especially the church or yung mga priests na nakakausap natin, are also thinking na maaaring ganun pa rin yung mangyari. Dahil nga, nakatutulong sa kanila yung ginagawang congregation or gathering of the cardinals para malaman nila kung sino-sino yung may mga insights or stand on certain issues na kinakaharap ng Catholic Church. Ces.
All right, thank you so much. Mon Galvez reporting to us live from the Vatican.
In recent years, conclaves only took a few days. That's what Mon was just telling us. But at one point in the Catholic Church's history, it took cardinals almost 3 years to elect a pope. And our big picture tonight is Viterbo, a city north of Rome where the longest ever conclave took place. In the 13th century, it took church shepherds 1,006 days to choose the successor of Pope Clement IV. Out of frustration and to force a quick vote, Viterbo citizens locked the cardinals in a room and removed the roof above it to expose the men of the cloth to the elements and extreme weather. The cardinals were also given limited supply of water and bread. Hence, the conclave, or conclave as we now know it in modern times, which loosely means under lock and key. At the community's intervention, Pope Gregory X was later on elected.
Can you imagine Mon and Cheryl staying them for how many years?
3 years. Pagbalik nila, baka hindi na natin sila makilala. But I think back then, mas political talaga yung conclave when the church was really meddling, quote-unquote, in affairs of the state. Diba? Parang ganun yung history.
There was even a time it ended or it resulted in a fist fight. Can you imagine?
And also wasn't there a
cannot
time
imagine.
when there was a mistake in the coloring of the smoke in the chimney?
Yeah.
I hope they fix that because you know.
Wala nang excuse for that in 2025 siguro. No?
But you never know.
We never know. Well, it starts tomorrow. No? So around 4 o'clock p.m. Philippine time, magsimula yung mass, which is 10 a.m. there. So abangan natin yan.
Isang tulog na lang.
Alright, isang tulog na lang. That is for tomorrow, May 7th. But that's it for the show on this Tuesday evening.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Have a good night.